It's so good finally to meet you.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you very much. We had no idea who you were. All of a sudden, people are like, "Yeah, this guy from Walk and Talk. He's been talking about you." So we watched the video. Thank you very much. That's got to be what, 6 months ago now, probably.
I guess 8 months.
Yeah, it was crazy for us. We had already seen some growth. I guess a lot of people were interested in the fact that we moved here. But after that video, it's like every day we're looking at our phone like, wowzers, I'd never seen so much growth on a YouTube channel. It just kept climbing and climbing.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Countryside Corner. Here we're all about faith, family, and freedom. Brought to you from no other than Mother Russia.
Right now, everything is, let's say, more or less okay with your documents, right? So you're moving further step by step, or what?
We ended up getting asylum here in Russia, which worked out great for us and allows us a 1-year stay. So we're now on asylum. We have legal paperwork allowing us to stay here for 1 year. And now with the new presidential decree allowing us to apply for residency without the need for a language test, we've now applied successfully for temporary residency.
And in terms of your business, what's going on right now? Also, like in 2 words.
Not much business yet. It's all development at the moment. We have land, so we opened a company, we purchased land, and we're busy building a house. Hopefully, we'll be able to move in the house here very soon. It needs to get registered yet as well. And then the real business development part would start more next year. Like over the course of winter, we'll start getting geared up. We're hoping to start producing food as of next year.
Particular food or what? Like
our idea is for basically like our own grocery store. Everything that we eat, we would like to grow as much as possible. We did this in Ontario and Canada as well. Probably about 90% of our food we grew ourselves. And that's our hope here as well. We'll continue adding things as we have time and energy and money. Having these platforms, YouTube, we're also on Telegram. That does help us reach more people around. But basically anything, vegetables, we hope to grow grain as well and sell flour. We'll have honey, meat, beef, pork, chicken, everything that we can, basically. And we still have to figure out a lot as far as the legalities in this country. It is different doing business here than it was in Canada. Some things are easier here and some things are harder here. So,
what about kids? I mean, like kindergarten or something, or like whatever.
Don't believe in kindergarten. Definitely don't believe in daycare. I believe, and this is my personal views. I mean, no offense to anyone else, but they're your children. You should look after them, and nobody will do as good a job as you do. And so my wife always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and she now has that opportunity. As long as we're financially able to do that, she can stay home and look after the children. And we did that in Canada as well. And I try as much as possible to be home and be available as well. And that's why again, we like farming. Farming allows me to be home basically all the time. So we work side by side with our children all the time. Schooling wise, we do homeschooling. It started in Canada already because the schooling got so bad there. For one, the education is terrible, depending on the school, depending on where you live. But also all the LGBT stuff that they're pushing in the school. We pulled our children out 10 years ago, I think, roughly 10 years ago. And we've been homeschooling them ever since. And I was leery on that at first because, the normal thing in everybody's brain, you send your kids to a school to teach them yourself. I've now come over that. It's not hard to teach your children. If you know how to read and write, you should be able to teach a child how to read and write. If you can count to 10, you should be able to teach somebody else how to count to 10. And so every moment becomes a teachable moment. Everything we're doing all the time. They learn how to build things. They learn how to count, to do math. And I find the school doesn't even teach things like finance anymore. We're now able to do that. Our children are part of the business. So they also count money. They also learn how to plan ahead and how to budget. It's just all inclusive. They actually, in my opinion, learn much more now than they ever would in a school.
Many people say that your kids should be so-called official in society, right? All those papers to be a part of official school community. Some parents, they have fear, let's say physics, chemical stuff. Society is pushing like your kids should know everything, right? So who will teach him if he sits at home? So all those, for some part, stereotypes, I guess like 98, 99% of all Russian kids, well, at least that's what I know, they go to public or private schools. It's so rare in Russia. I don't know about Canada or United States. It's so rare to meet like a family with a homeschooling. Very rare.
Yeah, there are quite a few here. Actually, we've run into quite a few already. And it is, when I was a kid, I grew up in a a church setting where we went to church every Sunday, and we went to a school that was owned by the church. So it was a private Christian school through everybody from our church, basically. So it's kind of narrow-minded that way. I don't know how everybody else was. In our circles, I only knew one family that homeschooled, and that was kind of a weird thing. Why would you homeschool your kids? Now it's much more common because the cost of private school, most families can't afford it now. My parents, I don't think they would have been able to afford it now. Like, it was easier then. And so I know quite a few families now that homeschool. And the ones that were sending them to a regular school, government school, especially as a conservative Christian, you can't. Like, the stuff that they're teaching in Western schools now is bananas. Some of it is outright disgusting, and some of it is just it doesn't make any sense, right? So there's more and more schools, more and more parents that are homeschooling their children now. And actually, many universities, there's been studies done. A lot of universities and colleges prefer homeschooled kids because they're more disciplined. It takes a lot more discipline to have a child sit still at home and study than it does to go to school. And they come out different. And a lot of employers, as well as universities and colleges, prefer homeschooled kids.
Speaking about your kids, they don't speak Russian at all.
My oldest daughter, she actually speaks Russian fairly well. She did a video on our YouTube channel only in Russian. Now, it's basic Russian still. I mean, obviously she's not fluent, but she does it pretty well. And if she's around close by, I often ask for her help if somebody shows up. They are all learning, and they have Russian friends that they speak with, and they somehow manage to communicate. So obviously they do know Russian. I would say they know a lot more than I do. Mine is very basic. I know what to say when I go to what store, and then I add more dialogue as I'm going, because you learn new words. Somebody says something to you and you're like, hey, what does that mean? And then you learn it and you add that to it. So my plan, like, first of all, as a father of a home, you're responsible for your wife and for your kids, and you need to make sure they're looked after. So I could have spent the last 9 months focused only on language, but then my family would still be stuck in an apartment in town. We need to get land, and we need to get a house. And once this is situated, then I can spend lots of time studying the language. But then my family's looked after. We need an income, we need food, we need shelter.
I've been thinking about your case, and I'm sure there are a lot of Western families who moved, let's say, for the last 2 years to Russia. I'm trying to imagine myself in your shoes. If you can elaborate a little bit more. Did you have any fears? It's like a big family moving to Russia. I don't know, Canada was your home, everything was familiar. And now Nizhny Novgorod, apart from saving your kids from, let's say, all those liberals, like ideas and things, but what was the main motive?
Opportunity. We've summed it up with faith, family, freedom. It kind of sums up a lot of it. And faith, family, farming as well. We just no longer saw opportunities. I've worked my tail off, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But just to get to where we are in Canada, to fathom the idea that I could help all my children, like, how? Everything is so expensive, and the price of everything. You can't save fast enough to buy a house. You can't even save fast enough for a down payment on a house. It's crazy how much stuff is going up. My grandparents, I recently shared this story, but my mother's parents, after World War II, had absolutely nothing. They managed to farm for somebody else, and slowly but surely they scraped up enough money. They got an opportunity to buy a farm. Long story short, they had 5 sons and 3 daughters, and they managed to help them all. All 5 sons were in a very close proximity, farming around them. They eventually retired when the youngest son took over the farm, got married, and they lived in a village, basically surrounded by all their children. And it's like, what a wonderful thing. I want that. I want to do that for my kids, but you can't. It's so expensive in Canada to buy even one farm. And then the profits you get off a farm it's peanuts. You can't hardly make any money at it anymore. Opportunity was a big one. We were always looking at that. And then we seen the direction Canada was going, extremely liberal, but also just the direction that the Western world is going towards farming. They get this idea of climate change and that cows are the problem. And, we have New Zealand now put a tax on cows burping and farting. And that's real. I don't know if you've heard of that or not, but the farmers literally have to pay a tax now for farting cows because it somehow contributes to climate change, right? It's all of these things that are like anti-farmer. So there's an anti-Christian agenda, but there's also an anti-farmer and an attack on the middle class. It became an easy decision for us. We had to move. And I have watched Russia for many years. I don't know anyone here, or didn't speak the language, but I could see that the government here was making decisions that were common sense. Yeah, more and more, we wanted a part of that. And then as I learned people that were here, right, I got a hold of, I don't know if you know John Hare in the Australians there in Altai. We watched some of their channels. Justice, the Happy Milkman, he's over there. I watched some of his stuff. Eventually, I got a hold of John Hare, and he got me a hold of Timor, and I got a hold of Father Gleason there in Yaroslavo. And, you know, he painted a picture that, hey, this fit exactly with what I thought Russia was like. It's not scary. And then, honestly, the climate's the same. I mean, you're going from Canada to Russia, you wouldn't know any difference. This looks just like Canada. So it's an easy adjustment in that sense. The biggest problem would be language for us. Yeah, it became a very easy decision. We also watched a lot of Vache in the Hay. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a Russian channel here. He's in Kaluga. Does a lot of work in the villages, helping out people, all right, buying them groceries. And that painted a very poor picture, actually, of Russia. It you know, it's like, okay, people live like that. All right. So we were mentally prepared for, you know, a lot of dilapidated villages and things to be run down. But we could still see that the future here was bright. There was hope. There was opportunity. Somebody that's willing to work hard will be rewarded. You know, that American dream idea, in my mind, still exists here. And I haven't changed my opinion on that. Coming here just solidified that.
You mentioned government. You have like a big family, both of you, and 8 kids. Even Russian family with 8 kids, I mean, will need a lot. But you are from Canada. You receive some help, right? Like local governments help you somehow, a little bit at least, or what?
I don't know all the help they've given us. One thing, of course, is immigration quota. As you're probably aware, each area is only allotted a certain amount of immigration quota. So to get that, it can often be a long line. We were reached out to, so through Timor, our lawyer, we had 2 regions, both Kaluga and Nizhny Novgorod, said that they would guarantee us a spot in the immigration quota. And that's already a huge thing, because you can make up your mind to go to Russia, but then what? You can't just show up, right? If you go to Georgia, we went to Tbilisi, Georgia, you don't have to ask anybody's permission. You just buy a ticket, show up, and they stamp your passport, and you can stay for 1 year. It's super easy. Coming to Russia, it's not easy at all. It's very complicated. And you know, you need to get an invitation for one from somebody in Russia to come in the first place. And then you need to, you know, prove you have your finances, all these other things in order. You need to, in order, if you want to stay, you need to have quota slot, and that's difficult. So they guaranteed us that. That was the first big help that they gave us. And I'm sure they've done a lot of things behind the scenes that I'm not even aware of. We have our electricity hooked up on the house here now, and people told us that that's amazingly fast. So I'm assuming that again was help from the government here. They are very, very interested in helping Westerners come and attracting more Westerners as well. I have no complaints. I hear of some immigrants in other areas that, you know, have been here for a long time, and they're really facing an uphill battle, and we can't relate. It has been a very easy transition for us here, and very welcoming, you know. After that, they also helped us with asylum, of course, reached out and helped us with that, which allowed us to stay for an entire year. And now I'm sure they're still helping in many ways.
Did you meet anybody from local administration?
Yeah, shortly after we were here, we had a meeting with Olga. I forget her last name now, but she's part of the government there in the Kremlin. We've also met with the Minister of Agriculture and with his deputy Minister of Agriculture a couple of times. I think 2 or 3 times I've met with him, once with the Minister of Ag. So those meetings are all constructive. They tried to help us also to find farmland, suitable areas, pointed us in the right direction, showed us what land was good, what was not so good. They even lined up 2 potential farmers that we could have worked with. We didn't end up going with either one of those. We found this land and fell in love instead, but the thought's still there, right? So. And then also telling us a lot about, because there are agricultural grants. We haven't received any grants or funding like that, but there are programs out there. So they've informed us about that as well. And they're still there anytime we need them, as far as contacts, if we need to talk to somebody or to get more information on something. So even just having that, knowing that, you know, somebody is there that you can communicate with is a huge help.
According to your opinion, what can be done better? I'm trying to picture or let's say model your experience for somebody else. Do you have anything in your mind? Because you already went through 8 months or 9 months. Looking back, what could have done better, you know? So
from a federal level, they have already done what I was hoping would be done. One bone of contention that I had was the language test. You can come here on a work permit and you don't need a language test, and you can stay here for, I think, 3 years on a work permit, no language test requirement, and then you got to go home, right? Or apply for something else. But temporary residency, which is also only a 3-year thing, doesn't guarantee you that you get to stay, but it allows you to stay within Russia for 3 years. But that one needed a language test. And to me, I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why not make it easier? Let people come. And then in that 3-year time period, they need to learn the language. And so now they did change the rule. I don't think that had anything to do with us, but Putin signed that new decree allowing people to come. And you can now file for temporary residency without any need for language. So that was probably my biggest issue that I thought was going to hinder people coming. You want Westerners to come, and especially people with large families. When are they going to have the time to learn the language? Like, it takes time. And if you're raising, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids, it's a lot of work, right? So that's not an excuse. The language still needs to be learned, but to give a little bit more time. So I think they've done that. And I think there's probably other initiatives that they're working on right now. Another big problem is, how do people move their money to this country? I think that's on a federal level. Something needs to be sorted out, because it's a real pain. It's a big question that I get from a lot of people that want to come. How can I move my funds over? And I don't have a clear answer on that. It's a real pain. Some people make success with crypto. We actually lost about 15,000 in crypto in the process of trying to move that over, and probably will never get that back. So on a federal level, that one I'd still like to see accomplished. House registration. So that is still a problem as well. Basically, you have to be registered. I think all citizens have to be registered as well. But for foreigners, they want to know where you are. And so you need to be at your registered address. I know some citizens who are registered in one city and they live in another city, and that's not a problem. But for an immigrant, that is a problem. You have to be registered there. And that is hard. Like, when we called trying to find a place to live, I called several hotels. They hung up the phone when I didn't speak Russian. So when you're outside of the country trying to find, it says, okay, I got to go to Russia. That's where we're going. Where am I going to live? And if it wasn't for this church that reached out to us and offered us an apartment to stay at, that's where our apartment in the city, we would have had nowhere to go. And so that was a real issue for us. And then they were willing to register you. So you can find houses for rent and you can find apartments for rent, but not everybody wants to register you, because then they have to pay taxes and such. So that's still an ongoing issue. I don't know how to tackle that. I do think it's wise to know where your immigrants are. In the West, there's a huge problem with immigrants all over the place, and nobody knows where they went. That's not good either. On a local level, though, I think I cannot complain at all in Nizhny Novgorod. I mean, the governor here has set up a new agency, the OKA. I call it OKA, but I think it's the OKA agency, has been set up here locally to not only welcome new immigrants, but also help them with all the paperwork, with all, driving around, finding a school, finding housing, finding farms, finding a job. It's in its infancy. It's got a lot of work to do yet, but the goal is there, the mindset's there, the initiative's there, and it's got full government support, which is huge. No other region that I know of is doing anything like that. And they are ready and willing for more foreigners to come. So I couldn't have ended up in a better region, because the support's here right from the top, like from the governor himself all the way down. It's not a low-level politician that says, hey, it would be kind of cool to have a Westerner come. No, this is from the governor, and it's his backing. So I think it's huge.
Not many people speak English right here.
Right.
I mean,
Yep.
and signs you see around, we don't have this like English letters or something. So for people from United States, from Canada, English-speaking people, it's not easy. In a regular city, Russian city, if you don't speak Russian, it's going to be not easy for you.
You have to be mentally prepared for that before you come.
On one hand, we have this idea to invite foreigners, but on the other hand, it's not easy. It's not easy for a regular foreigner to accommodate himself. And again, you're a farmer, but not many people are farmers. So many people are regular workers, like managers. In terms of like going to work somewhere, where are they going to go?
I don't know. So through the OKI agency, we had a good meeting, constructive meeting last week, where they explained a lot. I didn't really know a lot about this agency because we moved here prior to them doing this. But they do have a goal of talking with businesses and finding specific needs that businesses have and jobs that they would have that Westerners might be able to fill, and then matching them up. So it is something that they're working on. If you're coming here with no Russian capability at all, I would think it would be hard to find a job. Yes, I've always been self-employed, and I teach my children to not think about a job, but think about being a job creator and be an entrepreneur. Nothing wrong with getting a job, but if you're able to own the business, why not? And it's just a different mindset, I guess. How that's going to work for other people, I can't exactly say. You have to learn the language. I do very well with Google Translate, and maybe I'm kind of stubborn that way. Like I just do my best, and people snicker and laugh about my terrible Russian, and it just helps me learn, I guess. I haven't. The biggest problem for me, I guess, is that I can conduct business very, very well back home. I'm good at speaking. I'm good with people, and you can read people and understand what's going on. And here it's so different. I mean, I say something, and somebody that knows a little bit of English, they'll misunderstand it somehow, or through Translate. I get it on videos all the time on YouTube that they'll get a completely different meaning. I'm like, oh, you're upset about that? No, I'm not upset. What are you talking about? So those things you have to just get used to. That you move to another country. I have a huge appreciation now for all the immigrants that have moved to Canada. I've never thought about it before, but it must be difficult. It's got to be hard.
But Canada is an English-speaking country. If somebody speaks English, maybe, of course, he will face some difficulties, but all in all, he will be okay.
Yeah, but there's still misunderstandings, right? Some word that you think means one thing, and then they understand as something else, or some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but
it is harder going to Russia because nobody in the world speaks Russian.
That's what I'm trying to say. If I go to Canada, I'm going to survive. The only problem will be job or like whatever, what to do. But let's say if I have online income from Russia, well, I'm going to be fine. You mentioned church. Some local church help you a little bit, right? With apartment, like with something, community. Yeah. Let's say community. Don't you think it would be interesting? I mean, like even not interesting, but like efficient for foreigners. If let's say in Nizhny Novgorod or maybe in some other places, there will be some English cultural or English speaker or Western, whatever communities. Let's say any foreigner from Canada, from United States, he can go there directly. Kind of social church, not like religious place, but let's say social environment where any Western English or not Western, like English speaking person can go, and he will meet some people who speak English. He will be able at least to find some opportunities with accommodations. Maybe he may ask those questions like about registration, maybe even jobs opportunity. So this like safe environment for Western people, because it's like a church. Like for example, if I'm a Christian, let's say I'm a Catholic, right? The first thing I'm looking for if I move to new city, Catholic cathedral, right? But the idea is this: to have cultural / language / whatever social Western so-called or foreigner or for foreigners environment in, let's say, Nizhny Novgorod.
I think it's a good idea. I think it'll happen organically on its own anyway. More people are coming, and they're going to kind of gravitate towards each other, right? The people that are here already, a lot of us network together. Like Joseph Gleason, I know he moved from America 8 years ago, right? And John Harris. So some of us already know each other, and I speak with them regularly, and you bounce ideas back and forth and try to figure out what's working. I love the idea of networking. I think it's important. I worry about people building communities, like an English-speaking community, because then there's less pressure to actually learn the language and the culture. We came here to be Russian, and I don't want to be a Canadian living in Russian. I don't want to be known as that Canadian guy forever. I would like my identity to be Russian one day. That's what we moved here for. And so I do see a danger of, like in Canada as well, you have, different parts of the city belong to different nationalities, and they stay that way. And those people have less likelihood of fully integrating into society. So it's kind of twofold. It's good for the immigrant because you feel more comfortable, but you do at some point need to integrate. This is Russia after all. So
you mentioned church several times, but did you find any church? Do you go somewhere or?
We don't belong to any denomination. I'm welcome to attend lots of different kinds. And I have over the years. We attend all sorts of different churches, but we class ourselves as conservative Christian, don't belong to any denomination. I do find that a lot of people can be defined online. So if you say you're this or you're that, then the other people no longer want to talk to you. I like to talk to everybody. I'd like to be open-minded and help everybody and be friendly and ultimately stick to what we feel is God's plan for us as we read it in the Bible. North America is in a mess right now, and I do think if all the different Christian denominations would have worked together, a lot of it could have been avoided. But you're fighting about silly things that don't really matter while the city is burning behind you, and I think it's sad. I think we need to collectively work together and say, listen, man, some of this stuff is clearly wrong in everybody's eyes, let's work together and fix things, right? So,
do you have anybody, let's say in Canada, France, or some relatives who is questioning right now, let's say, your choice because of this political situation, because of Russia, Ukraine?
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Really?
We actually didn't tell a lot of them that we were leaving because we figured the blowback would just be terrible. A lot of people in the West are completely misguided. I mean, they follow the news. Where else are they going to get their information from, right? So, and they believe it, especially the older crowd. My parents, I was born in the Netherlands, so my parents obviously they grew up in the Netherlands as well, and their whole childhood growing up would have been the Cold War. They had this bad Russia. It's right next door. It's always a constant threat. You might get nuked or whatever. And that idea is still there. And now they watch the news, of course, Western media, and I mean, every day they're told how bad Russia is. So for them, for us coming here, that was pretty hard. That was, I didn't speak to them in depth about it, but I know that they didn't approve. Now, I don't know where they're at. I mean, we're still here. We're 9 months later. We still haven't got eaten by some crazy Russian, right? I mean, it's a perfectly normal place. I hope they can see that on the videos. My father-in-law, same thing. He doesn't like the idea at all. He wishes we would come back. I think they all understand that Canada is not the place it used to be, and that there's a lot of problems. I just don't think that they agree that Russia is the answer. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, she reads all the comments in our YouTube channel, and she's come on a long ways. For one, she believes in us, so she believes if we made this decision, then we obviously thought about it before doing it. But she also sees the comments underneath, and it's undeniable the love and the heart that the Russian people have. Just look at the comments, read through them. I only take out the absolute extreme vulgar people that are wishing us dead or things like that. The rest of it is all organic. It's natural. Those are real comments. I don't make them up. And you can just read through them yourself. I think they almost do a better job than our YouTube channel does. It shows who the Russian people are, how kind and loving and generous and wonderful it is. That speaks for itself, I guess. Siblings, I would say it's 50-50. I don't have any that are willing to come yet, but, we always tell them the opportunity's open. We'll do what we can to help them out. As Canada continues to degenerate, I guess, there's an option here, at least. We also have, I'm the youngest of my family. My parents had 10 children. I'm the youngest. And my wife is also the youngest. So our children are considerably younger than a lot of their cousins would be. And I think if I had older kids, I would not be as worried, at least for them. I would be worried for grandchildren in Canada. And if I had no kids, I would have just stayed in Canada. There's no reason to leave then at this point. So
Really?
yeah, so, I had a good life. I had a farm. My wife and I were doing well, and we lived comfortably. It's for the future, the opportunities or the lack thereof, the lack of opportunities for our children, and the direction that Canada has gone against Christianity. I worry about our children for sure. Yeah, children are under attack. I hear that said a lot, and I agree with that statement. Multiple topics here at once in my head, but I think that's one reason why the government here should be more careful on what is allowed to be played here and what is allowed to be taught to the youth, because Western media is a propaganda machine, and it does a great job. Hollywood is too, so is the music industry. It does a great job of making it look great. But go watch some videos. Aaron Gunn is one. I forget. I don't know if his channel is under his name or if he has a separate channel. But he did an excellent video showing some of the inner city stuff that's going on in Canada. I mean, there's homelessness and drugs everywhere. There's just people that are just twitching. They're just complete zombies walking around the streets. This is now reality, right? One area we were looking at moving to is Belleville, Ontario. It's kind of like Eastern Ontario. Beautiful city, beautiful parks, just wonderful. We loved walking around there while we were visiting. There's needles laying all over the place. There's drug addicts. Right, and this is a growing problem all over. When I was a kid, there was no homelessness. It was there, but I'd never seen one. I'd never ever seen a homeless person. The first time I went to Toronto, I seen a homeless guy laying on the side of the street. I'm like, wow, what is this? You see that in all sorts of small towns now, right? There's homeless people jumping into dumpsters in small rural village now, looking for food. The desperation and the homelessness, the hopelessness is growing, and you can visibly see it. You'd have to be blind to ignore it. Right? It's there. There's so many people now that are living on food stamps, people that can't afford all 3 meals. The government is now giving more meals at school because kids apparently aren't getting fed at home. I know there's multiple layers to that problem, maybe, but it just shows a picture of desperation. A number of years ago, I read a statistic that 80% of Canadians can't afford their debt. And if you really think about that, that's scary. That means they're borrowing more money every year in order to service the debt that they had. There's no hope in that. How do you ever get out of that? People that are working 2 jobs, 2.5 jobs, just trying to pay the bills. People living in the back of their car, people living in a camper. Like, it's all over the place now. You don't see that here. I think somebody told me that 80 or 90% of people own their own house here. No debt.
Of course, we also, like in Russia, because Russia is so huge, we have so many small cities and suburbs and like countrysides. I travel a lot. I visit different places, and I can tell you, we also have some problems, of course, with poor people, with starving people, old people. Not everything is perfect, but all in all, of course, all those problems you described, like these values. Well, me personally, I don't understand them because I don't feel it. Like we're in society, we're kind of protected. LGBT propaganda prohibited. Recent law they issued, child-free propaganda prohibited officially on government level. If somebody will post a video 10 reasons for not having a kid, he will be fined. No child-free propaganda, no at all.
I agree with that law. I know it sounds extreme, but I agree with it. Western civilization will cease to exist if people don't do something about it. And what are you living for if it's not for your kids?
Yeah, me too. If we make a parallel as like with a big family, right? On one hand, everybody's individual, right? But you cannot allow everybody to do whatever they want, right? All kids, like 8 kids, will do anything they want. But though in general, we have a freedom, right? Like everybody is free. There are some rules, and society, I guess, like a huge family.
One thing I wanted to go back to, you said about how you see that here as well, right? People are very poor and all that other stuff. I'd like to say that if you look at the statistics, and I don't believe I'm wrong because I have looked at these numbers before, in Russia, it used to be a lot higher and now it's a lot lower. There's active work being done to combat the poverty levels, and it's much lower now than it was, let's say, in the 90s. In Canada, you'll see the exact opposite statistics. So if you just look at it today, maybe there's more poor people here than there is in Canada. I have no idea. But I look at where it's going. Where did it go the last 5-10 years? And where is it going to go for the next 5 years? And then I see a problem. And so I didn't leave Canada because of today. I left it because I know what it used to look like and I know where it's headed and I don't want to go there. And here in Russia, it was a terrible place in the 90s, I keep being told. But it's not now. It's wonderful. Right? There's new development, there's roads, there's jobs. So yeah, there's still poor people. I'm sure there's probably still alcohol problems and drug problems, but it's better than it used to be.
Talking about those like potential Western people who may come, so still they will face some difficulties anyway. I mean, if they decide to go, let's say today or within the next like 5 months or something, so they should be prepared for what? For this registration. I guess like the good tip will be to save some money, right?
Yeah. Because see, even the first, even if you apply for temporary residency when you get here, you're not allowed to work until you receive it. So I think that takes at least 4 months, roughly, before you receive your temporary residency. At that point, you would officially allowed to be employed. So you have to at least support yourself that long. And then, as we already discussed, if you don't know the language, I don't know how you're going to get a job, right? So you should be prepared to support yourself, I think, for at least a year. And whatever that takes. People ask me all the time, how much money do I need to come? And it's like, oh, that depends, right? Are you willing to rent? Do you want to own? Or, do you need to live in Moscow, or can you live out in the village somewhere? There's a lot of differences, a lot of variables, right? Grocery prices are fairly cheap, but living expenses itself, I mean, that can vary a lot. So
we have many online jobs. It's much easier to find online job, even let's say in another country. I guess also good tip will be to start preparing yourself maybe like 1 year in advance, right? Maybe just like to negotiate with your employer that for next 2-3 years you will be working online from abroad. So also possible, right? For a person, maybe it will not be necessary to leave his job. Maybe he will just switch from office job to online job. Maybe, okay, a little reduction, right, in his salary, but still those money will be enough in Russia, because even like, okay, 20% cut, but it will be still salary.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. Another thing I tell a lot of people, especially older people who are somewhat more established, have a bit of a savings or have a house, you can put money in the bank here right now for like 18% interest. So, if you have $100,000 or $200,000 you can bring along, you throw that in the bank, you got yourself a bit of an income that'll go quite a ways here in Russia, right? And that's something you wouldn't have an opportunity for in Canada at all.
So what about plans? What do you see in the future, like to build up this farm
Well, like I said, we have the YouTube channel, we have Telegram, so people can find us there if they're interested in good, wholesome food. That's another motto of ours: is good food for good people. We would like to grow all organically and basically be all pasture raised as far as our animals are concerned, as much as possible. Some animals require a little bit of grain finishing sometimes, but so through those platforms, we're hoping to reach quite a few people. And then also on farm activities here, we would like to invite people out, even school groups, things like that. In my opinion, it's very important for agriculture to engage with, city life. So people know where their food's coming from. They know what it looks like and they feel good about it. We've seen that in Canada, that it became so disconnected. A lot of kids haven't got a clue where milk comes from. It comes from the store, they say, right? Or eggs, they come from the store. They don't realize it comes from a chicken or from a cow. And wouldn't that be cool if you could bring a busload of kids out and they can actually see a cow, touch a cow, maybe milk the cow, right? Or collect some egg. And the educational side of that doesn't necessarily bring any income, but I think it's good just to keep that connection open so people know where food comes from. So that's something we like to do as well. We're also talking about eco-village options. People would be able to come out and camp on the farm, maybe help on the farm, maybe work for a week. I don't know. We're not 100% sure where we're all going to go with that. We've lots of ideas, I suppose. The house first here, then language studies all winter long. And then if I have time yet this year, I'm hoping to build a workshop where we can start building stuff inside. And then part of that would be for some cows. I'd like to get a few cows yet this winter, if I have time. But I mean, I'm asking a lot. Winter's coming soon. So, and then we'll start with vegetable gardens in the spring and then more animals. We got lots and lots of fencing to do, lots of land to work, seeding. And we're busy.
You're getting really involved in local society. That's interesting.
Tough for us in that way because we're kind of pioneering it, I guess. I don't really think of myself that way, but it's not like I can copy somebody. Nobody else is doing this, right? Hopefully in the future, as more farmers come, they can say, okay, what did he do and what worked? And who did he talk to? For us, I still have a ton of questions. There's a lot of unknown. You don't always get answers the way you'd like them. And again, if I was in Canada, I know where to go. I know who to call. I know what to figure out. Here, it's just different. What I'm trying to say is I need to learn what's allowed, what's not allowed. What is the legalities? We obviously want to stay within the law. We believe to be law-abiding citizens. So we want to do everything proper. But what is proper? I need to figure all that out yet. So we don't want to unknowingly break the law and then find ourselves in trouble later on. New immigrants coming too. There's a lot of things that are just different, and I think you need to be open-minded and accept the fact that this is not where you came from, and you left for a reason. And I came here because I believe Russia's better. I didn't come here to change Russia. So now I need to figure out how does Russia operate, and how can I fit my family into that and be successful.
But that's very good. So this is what I'm trying to say. You are showing with your family example of not like survivors, because many people are coming over and they want to survive, just like to be calm, but you want to do some, I don't know, impact on society. That's interesting. The more people like you we have here, the better it will be, because not even, consider locals. Not many people want to be farmer.
I know so many young guys that would love to farm and can't. The price of land is just out of reach. There's no way to do it. I got nephews. My parents got 51 grandkids. And there's a lot of them there that I think wouldn't mind farming, but you just can't afford it. Right.
So you see, we have huge amount of land, very cheap.
Nobody's doing anything with it.
Nobody is doing it.
It is a lot of work and it takes a mindset. But I look at other. Like, be honest, how many jobs can you spend time with your kids, right? If I had a job in town, let's say I work at the bank, or I don't know, I'm a lawyer or something like that. How many hours a day can I actually spend with my kids? And I have 8 of them here, keep in mind. So to spend time with them is even more important, right? If you have a 1 hour of spare time a day and you have 1 kid, then that kid could maybe have 1 hour, but I got to divide it up over 8 kids. I can't do that in any other job. Right? I've worked jobs before, and I've been self-employed now for 10 years, I think it is. And I wouldn't have it any other way, because when I'm building something, I'm still just as busy, maybe busier, but now I do it with my family every day. So to me, there's nothing better. I don't do farming necessarily for the money. Obviously, we need to eat, right? But I do it for the lifestyle, the opportunity to be there with my kids, with my wife every day. I can't ask for a better life than that. So. said this a lot of times too. The pinnacle of success. You got all these different jobs. Politicians, lawyers, bankers, whatever it is. On the top of the mountain for me, that's farmer. There's nothing better than that.
So the main reason why you like this job because of lifestyle, not because of profit.
That's right. Yep. And I could make a lot more money doing other stuff. A lot of people ask me, they watched me build the house here on the YouTube channel. Well, you should be a builder. Why would you come to Russia to farm? You should be doing the building. Yeah, I'm good at building. I love building. I absolutely love it. But then I'm gone every day again. What's the point? Why have all these kids and then let someone else raise them? I enjoy spending time with my children. And the more often I can be at home, and anytime I can walk in the house and pick up my little 1-year-old and give her a snuggle. I couldn't do that if I was living somewhere else or working somewhere else, right? To me, it's all about family. That's what life's about. So, well, God, obviously, but you can worship God anywhere, but you can't take your kids with you to the office. So, yeah, that's what I said. Faith, family, farm, and in that order as well. Faith, God is the most important, and then family is the second important, and then whatever I got to do to support them. So,
do you consider hiring some workers?
Yeah, we would like to hire workers. We're in the talks of some right now. Actually, there's one family that's coming. Very likely will be working for us here on the farm. I realize that's a foreigner coming, but we do need some people that understand and think the way we do. But we do want to make an impact on community. We've said this many times that we believe we have been blessed with talents. Everybody has. And to use those for ourselves and build our own kingdom is a selfish thing. We would really like to use what God has given us for the betterness of everyone. And that means building community. That means, if you're driving around somewhere and you see somebody down on their luck, that you help them out, whether that's with a roof or with clothes or food or whatever it might be. It's all about community building and making everything better together as much as possible. And it's also job creation, right? I think a lot of the reason why people leave these villages is there's just not enough money to be made. So they end up in the city, and then they raise their kids in the city. And I think it's much better. Again, this is my opinion. I mean no offense to anybody, but I think it's better to raise your kids out here in the village, in the countryside, than it is in the city. There's so much more. I've never heard my kids ever say that they're bored. There's just stuff to do all the time. And I couldn't imagine that when we were cooped up every day in the city. I mean, we still spend a lot of time in the city, but more and more time out here. Once this place is done, we'll be out here full time. Kids always have something to do, right? So if I can hire people and give them a decent wage that they can afford to live out here full time and live the lifestyle that we live, that's awesome. I think that's what it's about. And to that end, we're also talking about starting a construction company, even though I don't want to, just because, it is something we're good at. And if there's demand, then we can hire people and we can provide a better lifestyle and opportunity for those people somehow. So now, how is it all going to work? I don't know. We're only, I'm one man, my wife's one woman, and, we got a lot of kids. We have a lot of ambitions. This is not going to happen in 6 months. It's not going to happen in 1 year. It's a long-term goal, but we'd like to continue to dedicate our lives to it. To try to do what we can to make this world a better place.
That's amazing. It's a good message, good motivation. Thanks for your time. It was good to talk to you. And
yeah, you too. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the chat. So.